Good. We now move on, in fact, to the theme of this session. I'm supposed to introduce who in fact I am. I'm in fact from South Africa, Marurice Mars. I work both within South Africa, and I work internationally. Sorry, let's just get this up to full screen. There we go. Okay. So, first off, I would like to thank the organizers for having invited me and for having assembled a very interesting panel who will take us forward on the concept of using ICTs for achieving the MDGs in healthcare. Now, the purpose of the talk I'm going to give is to attempt to set the scene of the developing world and some of the issues it faces before we think about putting ICTs in as a solution. And it's important that we consider that the people who need it most are the poorest of the poor, the bottom billion people in the world. It's those that we actually have to get to if we want to achieve the end goal of improving their health. So in 2006, the World Health Organization came out with its annual report, and it summarized it as such. Africa has almost 1/4 of the total burden of disease in the world, serviced by 3% of the doctors in the world, who have access to 1% of the health spend. So there's an extreme shortage of doctors. And we need to think about this and compare it with, India. In 31 of the 48 sub-Saharan African countries, there are 10 doctors or fewer per 100,000 people. India, you think it's bad here? It's far worse. Now, the next problem that we face is we don't have enough doctors, but we're making people far too fast. So the number of people is outstripping the number of doctors. The total population of Africa will double in the next 40 years. So we come to an issue, and I'm faced with this issue everywhere I go to, in Africa. And the problem is, can one justify spending money on ICT solutions in health when that money, may be taken away from buying tablets for sick children? So it's something that we seriously have to think about. So how much do African countries spend? Well, they don't spend much. The, median spend is $34 a head a year. That's the government spend. But there are 10 countries that spend less than $10 a head a year. That's, 3 cents a day. Right. That's not much. Now you've got to work out, which ICT solution are you going to buy for, 3 cents a day? In most of the developed world, governments spend between 2 and 2.5% of their health budget on ICTs in health. And if we take the median figure for Africa, that's about 70 cents to $1 a head a year. Right? You've got to work out what, as a government, you can actually buy, with that. So is telemedicine a solution? And we see here the consultant working from home, cell phone to his ear, his notebook in front of him. He needs infrastructure in order to actually achieve that. In order to use ICTs, you must have power. This is a composite photo of the world at night without clouds. And you can see India is a bright triangle. Africa is darkest Africa. It's not because people turn off their lights and go to bed early. There is no power. Without power, you can't make most ICTs work. The next issue is that we don't have much infrastructure. The costs of telecommunication are high. In fact, people can't read. If they can't read, their chances of working a computer are comparatively slim. There are 2,000 languages in Africa, about the same as I believe you have here in India. Of those 2,000 languages, only 40 are available on the web. So let's go a bit deeper into this. Fixed phone line penetration in sub-Saharan Africa, 1.4%. If you don't have fixed phone lines, it's hard to get internet into people's homes. So internet penetration in sub-Saharan Africa is somewhere between 4.5% and 5%. Fixed line broadband, 0.1%. just think about that in the solutions that you're thinking about. Cell phone penetration is going up very fast off a very small base. We're now at somewhere between 40 and 45% penetration. The ITU comes out with figures annually of 161 nations where they work out the average costs of certain services, and they express these in terms of the GNI per capita a month. And I've put in India, and India comes slap bang in the middle. Compare the costs of fixed broadband, for example, in fact, Nigeria and India. Cell phones, and these are 2008, 2009 data, and the costs have been coming down here significantly. So simple communication is expensive. Right, so I've set the scene for the, in fact, developing world, and I've chosen sub-Saharan Africa because that is the area that I work in. About 8 weeks ago, this document came out, and I'm going to just extract some of the diagrams to share with you, to show you where we are and some of the, in fact, issues. In fact, each of the diagrams, we have sub-Saharan Africa and Southern Asia. I think that's jumped a slide, is it? The point that we were at in 1990, the point that we're at in 2009, and that line, if I can get this mouse cursor to move for me, is where we're supposed to be. Right? And we're a long way away from achieving any of these. And in some instances, some countries are getting worse, especially with child mortality and, in fact, maternal mortality, because the birth rates are so high we don't have enough doctors. The situation is getting worse. So, child mortality, the same bleak outlook. We are not going to achieve it. Improved maternal health, same bleak outlook. We're not going to achieve it. AIDS and other diseases, well, AIDS we seem to have stopped the explosion, but there's often a secondary rebound, and we need to wait to see what happens there. TB, we are failing in sub-Saharan Africa. In South Africa, we have an epidemic now of MDR TB. We had something like 300 cases of XDR TB last year. And so the, in fact, situation is getting worse. The, in fact, eighth goal is to improve information communication technology within the developing world, and I've basically spoken about this. This is internet access. About 11% in the developing regions. As I said, for Africa, it's about 4.5%. And this is the sad data about broadband. People can't get it, and it's expensive, and that is the take-home message. So, at that point, I stop, and I hope that I'll learn from the panelists about how we might make ICTs work for us in actually addressing some of these goals. In fact, thank you very much. I'm going to now I'm going to call upon the first. Thank you. I'm going to call upon the first panelist, who is in fact Troop Captain, in fact, Dr. Sanjeev Sood, who is the Hospital and Health Systems Administrator in the Air Force, and I couldn't get the name of the base or town, so if you can fill us in on that. In fact, Dr. Sood.